rival John O'Driscoll. Then the number 10 coming down towards the line, so it appears, and that would be Donnie Linton. Now 6th fastest as he crosses the line, the number 8 from behind him there. And we see a huge leap for Jay Johnson up to 4th with Ferrari. Then we see a huge shift as Owen Camu goes faster than Jasper Prins. John O'Driscoll makes his way down towards the line amongst a huge wad of cars here, the 50 and the 1 in front of him. That's Fernandez, Pedra, and by looks of it there as well, that was Antonio Angeletta. We see John O'Driscoll down towards the line here. Can he make improvements upon to the front row? Still held out there by 105 thousandths behind Jasper Prins in the triple three. 247, 66 and 122 across the line. Among them, Anthony Daniel now 13th as he crossed the line there, now up and ahead of Dexter and Scaparo. We see here Liam Morrissey just made his way onto the charts, the 777, now 17th in the session, the number 123, Alessandro Litti. Can he make his way back into the top 10? Just held outside of it by 300ths of a second behind Donnie Linton with BMW. The number 86, Sebastian Scaparo, leaps up to 14th in his last lap just gone there. 5 minutes coming up onto left to go in qualifying. The current scope of it is a McLaren 1-2 here. Owen Camu and Jasper Prins, the 2 fastest times so far. Then John O'Driscoll and Lee Evans, your championship rivals here for season 3. These two held in arms by 13 points to the favour of John O'Driscoll. Now, speaking of that, taking a look at the odds here for the championship, the current gap residing at 13 points. To definitively clear would require 14 points. So in Evans' case, what he would need to do is, if he could finish first place, he'd need O'Driscoll to finish 5th or below. If he were to finish second, he'd need O'Driscoll to finish 8th or below, and third, he'd need O'Driscoll to finish 9th or below. 4th or 5th are non-negotiable options. He would not find enough of an advantage, no matter where O'Driscoll finished, to clear ahead of the Ferrari. So really, in the case here, the pressure could not be higher for Evans to try and clinch this championship ahead of O'Driscoll. For O'Driscoll's case, he has to finish ahead of Evans at all costs. It does not matter if he takes a race win today, but he is certainly charging for one in the early doors of the qualifying session. 4 minutes left to go, and he's up to the front row now with ample chance to challenge Owen Camu, and he's not alone in that fight. Joining him, his fellow Ferrari, Jay Johnson, having made the leap up to 3rd, now ahead of Jasper Prins by 100th of a second. Prins, by that matter as well, is joint on time with Milan Piconi, with the number 23 coming to the line here. We see with Alessandro Litti down across the line from 13th, stays there for Lamborghini. Number 86 nearest to the line, so that would be Scaparo, we saw on the map, and then we see it here was a bit of a wonky run through the Curva Parabolica, so we'll see whether or not that materializes as an improvement from 16th across the line. And as expected there, nothing to have been found. Currently then, the fastest time, 1:46.665, set by Owen Camu. On his debut drive, mind you, in this championship, Season 3, for the sum of its very short time spent in the limelight, has provided plenty of surprises, this being the latest among them. So when we get on into the discussion of Season 4's calendar during the break, it is definitely worth considering, if we are to see this driver again, the likelihood that he may be able to compete for a championship in his own respect with the performance we're seeing today. Bear in mind, there'll be more rounds coming up into Season 4, that which we'll be able to discuss not too long from now. Nearest to the line, the 112, so that is going to be, by the looks of it there, Rudolf Laniaks from 9th on the field, still tucked in behind Linton and Hoke from 8th and 7th. Number 1 and number 4 nearest to the line. Antonio Angeletta from 17th across the line with Ferrari, couldn't find anything. And behind him was on the map there, the number 4, that being Sean McNally, 14th at this time, 2.208 seconds away from the fastest time locally, not too far off a shout here of 13th, courtesy of Alessandro Litti and Lamborghini. Number 1, 2, 3, you see here down towards turn 11. 122 having crossed the line not too long ago. That was Anthony Daniel, 17th in the session. We see for Litti down towards the line now, crossing over into that point of no return. This is where it's going to be all or nothing for that charge back into the top 10 for the Lamborghini. Would need to make, looking at it there, roughly in the park of about 135 by looks of it there, thousandths of a second. That would be to cross over into that margin set by Lewis Mackenzie in 10th place of the session thus far. Number 28 nearest to the line, so Willie Hoke, of course, amidst that huge wipeout at Ascari, has since made his way 7th in the timing charts so far. And we see here crossing down towards the line onto his final flying lap. Sadly, no improvement to have been found in that last one, but I think it's worth noting that he was coiling up for this one. So you see here for Evans, down across the line onto another flying lap, the last he'll do in this championship before the last race coming. Number 3 across the line a moment ago, and the number 8 by looks of it there coming into the pits. That's Jay Johnson, reeling from a fantastic qualifying session. It's definitely worth picking up there with Johnson, what has been a brilliant qualifying session so far. 3rd fastest, already ahead of one of the McLarens that was otherwise dominating that front row. Jasper Prins still behind by a single 100th. Now he's in a very uncomfortable spot here. He is dead level with Milan Picconi, admittedly to no challenge now as Picconi's in the pit lane past the point of no return. So really all it is fighting that incredibly thin gap to make 3rd in qualifying. As we see here, he will be beaten by the bell, and not the only driver to have found himself in that predicament. Plenty more down to the line. Among them was the 122 of Anthony Daniel. Down to the line then, the 333, Jasper Prins, on his first ever qualifying. Can he clear it? Yes, he does. Up to 3rd. From behind him, the number 123, Alessandro Litti, sadly held away from being in that top 10. Will start from 13th place for Lamborghini. Nearest to the line, the 777, Liam Morrissey, on his way down towards the curve of Parabolica. It's been a confusing session for some of the McLarens here towards the back of the field. We do see a huge spread of them towards the back of the top 10, then briefly up on the podium. So you see here for Morrissey, he makes one of 2 McLarens towards the back of the top 20, the other being Marcelino Fernandez Pedro. Both of them starting then, by the looks of it, not too far away from one another at all. 20th and 21st. Number 3 nearest to the line. That's for Jonathan Barrett. From 15th on the field, can he find an improvement at the end of this session? Not this time around. Number 44 nearest, Lewis McKenzie, on his way to the line. Needs 12 thousandths over Linton, and that he did find. So up to 9th place goes McKenzie at the end of this qualifying session. The number 1, the number 67, and the number 333 to be expected. Of course, we saw already for Jasper Prins, he's at the end of his qualifying session, made that final push up towards 3rd place. So we'll see here with the leading car, and by looks of it there, throwing in the towel, that was Owen Camus. He's done more than enough to secure pole position away from John O'Driscoll. 447 thousandths of a second divide the leading pair with a 1:46.665, your fastest time of the session at the end of qualifying. Then pole position for Owen Camus on debut and the final round of Season 3. So then, getting on to the session itinerary once again before we take a look into the race, taking a look here with the current schedule. Do find ourselves now at the end of qualifying and onto that 5-minute break where we get to talk about 2 major articles of news to have spiked our interest in the last couple of days here. Project Rally 1 and MSC's GT3 Season 4. So, plenty more to follow. So, getting on to that discussion post-haste here at the end of this session. Of course, there will also be the discussion of the grid coming up after our brief talks here. We're taking a look into that discussion almost immediately. One of the most curious cases in the world of rallying has emerged in the last couple of days here. That has been ProSpeed's Project Rally 1 as it gets its first full body image release since the announcement of the project earlier in 2025. They're set to become the first privately constructed car to compete independently in the WRC, and it's going to be the first fully dedicated rally platform since the end of the Group B era in 1986. What we mean by this is, unlike the other 3 main manufacturers in Rally 1 who developed their cars from pre-existing homologated models, ProSpeed is working it the other way around, building a rally car first and a road car second, with recent interviews stating they're confident confident in being able to produce 10 legal examples to deliver to the FIA for scrutineering. If they pass, they'll have a 10-year legal basis to compete in the World Rally Championship. The mechanical base of this car is set to be derived from the Skoda Fabia RS Rally 2, as the new regulations coming up next year in 2027, when this car is set to make its debut, dictate that all mechanical components must be sourced from current Rally 2 manufacturers. That leaves the menu as following for any would-be manufacturer teams: Ford, Toyota, Hyundai, Skoda, Citroën and Lancia. With the regs set to inherit the common space frame design from before, but with greater freedoms on design to the size of the car, accommodating for sedan, SUV and hatchback body types respectively. This is going to make for a very curious case. You can see this car is an awkward amalgam almost of sorts there, owing its design cues to various other vehicles that already exist, but never once bleeding entirely into one side of it. You can see almost elements of Porsche Macan in there. The front lights are off of, I would say that's a Skoda Fabia, hence obviously the mechanical underpinnings coming from a Fabia. And it's going to be very, very curious to see what they make of it, and moreover for the rest of the grid coming up into next year's WRC 27 regulations, set to make Rally 1 significantly cheaper, more alluring, but also with that recent caveat that all mechanical parts have to come from a Rally 2 manufacturer. It is going to now have to promote that new manufacturers wanting to re-enter the World Rally Championship must first do so under the auspice of the much cheaper and more accessible Rally 2 configuration before they can commit to a mainline Rally 1 campaign. Now, our next article of news comes out of this series in particular, as now we get the opportunity, and it is a great privilege of ours here on TRTN to be able to reveal the calendar for Season 4. Taking a look then, it will be 6 rounds in the 4th season of the GT3 Console Championship here on MSC, with Brands Hatch set to be its debut on the 13th of March, Zolder to be the second round the week thereafter. Then continuing week on week, we'll find ourselves at Silverstone, the Hungaroring, Zandvoort and Barcelona throughout what is a 6-round championship, an extension over this season's 4-round tenure, held at the same time as we've seen here for this championship's races in the last couple of weeks. Now, I'm quite excited here to take a look at this championship because, of course, completely bespoke to the events we've seen this season. No returning events coming up into Season 4. Moreover, we get to see the return of British rounds in the championship, Brands Hatch and Silverstone among them. Definitely looking forward to those two in particular, but it's definitely worth noting, in our experience, some of the best racing we've seen has come out of the Hungaroring. We've also seen a stroke of recent luck out of Barcelona, so there's a lot to dig into over the course of this championship. We'll be very enthusiastic to break that down when we get on to covering this later on in March. That is going to be quite an exciting time to see. And of course, what a great circuit to kick that championship off in. Brands Hatch has been an absolute belter every single time it has hosted the debut of any championship. Last time we saw that to be the case, if I'm not mistaken, was, as a matter of fact, Season 3 of the NLRL Sunday League that gave us the first ever 1-2-3 for a manufacturer in the series' history. That went to Ford at the end of round 1. So then, taking a look onto the final grid of Season 3 here in MSC's GT Console Championship, and it's Owen Camus on pole position on his debut in the number 67 Sky Tempesta Racing McLaren. Alongside him then, the possible champion-to-be, John O'Driscoll in the number 420 Ferrari. Behind him, Jasper Prins, also on debut, makes the second row right behind his fellow rookie, the number 67. These two brand new to the championship here in the final stop. Behind him, Jay Johnson, Milan Picconi, Lee Evans and Rudolf Zlaniaks, Willie Hoke, Lewis McKenzie and Donnie Linton to round out the top 10. Then further down the order, Alan O'Brien, Daniel O'Brien, Alessandro Litti, Sean McNally, Jonathan Barrett, Sebastian Scaparo, Anthony Daniel and Antonio Angeletta. Liam Morrissey and Marcelino Fernandez Pedra round out the top 20, with Ben Dexter and Sean O'Grady in the 11th row of the grid. On board then with Owen Camus as we get on to the discussion of that formation lap. So taking us away then, Camus from O'Driscoll. This is going to be a very curious start to this race indeed. This is one of the most universally dreaded sections of FIA Grade 1 the world has ever known. It has created some of the most brutal moments we've seen in motorsports. Making our way then down towards the dreaded Variante Rettifilo. When we were last here at Monza, of course, we mentioned that was over the course of the 6 hours of Monza. Ended up becoming into 2 halves, really, the 2-3 hours of Monza, respectively, in the Console Endurance Series. But even then, that gave us one of the most brutal starts that season had seen when we got green and racing for the first time earlier on in the championship. I mean, it was absolutely feral from what we saw there, and that was a grid of upwards of 20 to 30 or so cars here. We've 22 in all, 11 either side of it for the start of race 4, the final round of what has been a very short but very sweet season 3. It's given us plenty of twists and turns, and very soon could give John O'Driscoll his championship title. Bear in mind, it is looking highly favourable for O'Driscoll. Of course, his current odds to take the championship away from the chances of the 444, which we can find there tucked further down the field behind Milan Piconi, that being Lee Evans. His only odds are to finish ahead of Evans by any means necessary. He already holds the 13-point advantage over the 444. It's really the heavy lifting that's got to be done on Nissan's part to potentially clinch this championship. It is a bit of a one-sided affair, especially under balance of performance, where Nissan find themselves heaviest in class and Ferrari finds themselves skimming weight. To make our way down the curve to Saraglio, it's currently McLaren's game to play here, courtesy of Owen Camu. It is going to be very, very interesting to see how these two play up against one another. Of course, very heavy stakes here on the line for O'Driscoll. He has a championship to win. He doesn't want to play second fiddle to anyone on track. Now, we were told coming into this race that he'd be playing things a little closer to the chest here, not trying to get his elbows out too much. Wherever he lands is wherever he lands, so long as it's ahead of the 444. He's playing this primarily in the points game here, not trying to overexert himself in the early doors of this race. So we could definitely see, on that note, a bit of a more relaxed start from the 420, whatever that does happen to look like. So down through Ascari, still on board here with the Sky Tempesta Racing McLaren. Fantastic livery. Pity, though, that Sky Broadband is less than desirable. That's neither a point here nor there. Anyone who's been on the Sky Broadband could tell you that one. Making our way down towards the Curva Parabolica, turn 11. To begin that formation process. 22 cars then in attendance for round 4, the championship here at the season finale. Picking up where we left off 3 weeks ago, after that very bizarre quote-unquote first round here in Monza that saw half the grid disconnect at the halfway mark of the race. Ultimately, the session would later be red flagged and the season would be reran from Spa onwards. But I say thank goodness that it did, because getting our second opportunity to visit this circuit in this championship has proven to be a gamble worth taking, as making our way down towards the line. 22 cars in all, with the championship riding upon the line, hanging up over the first 3 rows. Making our way down towards the line then. 30 minutes of racing against the clock here in the Autodromo Nazionale di Monza, home of the Italian Grand Prix, now home of the final round of season 3. Down towards the line then, Camu from O'Driscoll, and now we're green racing here in the Temple of Speed. A great start we can see there from Jasper Prince on the second row, now up and alongside John O'Driscoll into the slipstream of Owen Camu as we make our way down towards the Variante Rettifilo for the first time. We see that trying to go up and around the outside went the 333, later onto the brakes, potentially taking the initiative as he gets up the inside through to turn 2, ultimately sells himself a bit short there as now tucks in ahead of O'Driscoll. Now up and around the Curva Grande, tucks over the rear quarter of Owen Camu. These two looking to go side by side. Meanwhile, it's yellow flags down at Rettifilo. So we see recently there, Evans now up to 4th ahead of Johnson. Down towards Della Rosia we go. Very eager start then from Prince. Back into green flags here into Sector 2 as we now see further down the line. Things getting a little bit wiry between there by looks of it down the order. Get a look here with the likes of not only Lewis McKenzie, of which we're on board with at the moment, but look up in front of him with Milan Piconi, Rudolf Slaniaks and Willie Hoke all getting into arms here over position. This is currently for control outright by 6th place. In through the Curva de Lesmo, we see they're up into 7th. Goes Slaniaks ahead of Hoke. Looking up through the order, back into our leading pair as we head in towards the Curva de Saraglio. That's the leading trio as it stands here, with John O'Driscoll glued to the back end of this twin set of 720Ss, up over the front row of this race. So a very, very solid start to be had there by McLaren, namely by Jasper Prins, getting the initiative there on the race start. Already had a great start up and ahead of O'Driscoll, and now looks to be hunting down his chances of the race lead. What we're looking at here, folks, is very much so the scope of the battle of first place. Making our way then out of Parabolica. In that last lap as well, faster by 0.3 of a second. It is a staggering statistic to hold there. Prins caught fully in the slipstream behind Camo in towards turn 1 and 2, then at the Variante Rettifilo, playing a little bit more defensively there this time around. That's opened up the door for John O'Driscoll to come and have a go here. Getting a look on board. Trying to catch with the Ferrari. Now up and alongside. We're looking here in the fight of second place between Jasper Prins and John O'Driscoll. Looking up in towards the Variante della Roggia. Up the inside, the 420. Going longer onto the brakes, though the 333, there is contact, but very quickly saved there by O'Driscoll. But he is not happy with that whatsoever. As you can see, creeping up from behind, still side by side as it stands at the moment with Jay Johnson, is his championship rival Lee Evans in the 444 GTR. Those two incredibly close to one another as it stands for that fight of 4th place. We saw, though, a bit of a fracture point in this most recent fight for second between Prins and O'Driscoll. We see O'Driscoll swerving down the curve to Saraglio. Why on earth would he be thinking of doing such a thing there, trying to put some heat in the tyres, perhaps? In towards Ascari, trying to leverage every degree he could possibly get here, but right now as he drops away from the slipstream of the McLarens, he has got to start considering here, looming off in the distance, the faint shadow as it stands right now, but perhaps not for long, of the GTR, the 444 of Lee Evans. Looking away then from the fight of second place, we look on board here with Jay Johnson. This is for 4th place. He was right up and alongside for a moment's time there with the 444 of Evans. Now tucking in over the back end of the GTR as we make our way out of turn 11. You can see, though, just the difference in terms of top ends between the Nissan and the Ferrari. The Ferrari, the moment it deviates from the slipstream, cannot keep wind with that GTR. V6 against V6 there on the run in towards the Variante Rettifilo. Johnson can't find any dice of it. We see in the background, though, big trouble by, so it appears, for that of Lewis Mackenzie. So you see here for the 44, had to take the runoff through Rettifilo. Ultimately drops now in behind Antonio Angeletta, down to 15th place. Up in front, we do see McNally v Scaparo, worth noting in that current fight. We also see here, from one angle of it, this is from Scaparo's point of view. Up in front of him, Sean McNally. Then further up the road, the two O'Briens, Daniel and Aaron. Not Aaron, Alan, sorry. Still getting to grips with names here, but I'm sure we'll come to recognise all of these drivers implicitly into Season 4. Meanwhile, yellow flags back out again. This is for, by the looks of it there, the 247 at the back of the field. Had some trouble down through Rettifilo and Della Roggia. Now as he makes his way out of the curve of Delesmo, back in the green flag, so no issue in reporting that there. We'll see here with Scaparo's point of view, chasing down McNally from behind him. It's worth pointing out that previous engagement there between Mackenzie and Angeletta. Mackenzie dropping in behind Angeletta. He's very quick to start to regain some of that ground. Meanwhile, Barrett looking to be getting into a fight not long from now for 16th place, defending against Anthony Daniel. Meanwhile, we see here, picking back up where we left off on the fight of second place. Now from the defending point of view, Jasper Prins against John O'Driscoll. O'Driscoll up the inside in towards Rettifilo, a lot more assertive this time around. Very nice, neat and tidy from the 420. Very few risks involved. In the meantime, we also see now that Johnson up ahead of Evans. So you see here, continuing with the 333 in the 420, heading out through the Curva Grande, down towards Della Roggia. And a very active opening 7 minutes of racing here in Monza. With a lot riding on the line, we can see trying to get inside the head of the 420 here, the 333, on his first ever race. Now, it is quite a delight here to see drivers not afraid to get their elbows out, not afraid to get up and into the action with drivers already established in the series. I think we see that degree of hesitancy play in late season for a lot of people, not wanting to stick their neck into the championships. I think it is quite a refreshing take here to see drivers land absolute shockwaves on the grid like Camus and Prince have so far. Bear in mind, they may not be 100% familiar to this field this season, but that's not stopped them from getting into the thick of it with these drivers. Bear in mind, that whole top 3 are new for this season. In fact, the whole top 4, if I'm not mistaken, are new for this season. More on that later on, though. Yellow flags out at Ascari, the number 28 in trouble, and that is Willie Hoke in the same place we found him the last time around where he had big trouble. That was during his qualifying run, and now it picks up to bite him on the backside once again. The 28 in trouble down at Ascari. He gets back up and running, but down now in 17th place. Just before the first 10 minutes have concluded. So looking back in with the rest of the field, as we see that Evans has now dropped down to 5th and actually lost quite a considerable wad of time away from Jay Johnson on our screens at the moment in the number 8. It is worth considering that potential fight coming up not too long from now, not only between Picconi and Evans, but looking behind them, an ongoing fight here between Rudolph's Laniax and Donnie Linton. This is for 7th on the field as we take a look in here with Linton defending away from Laniax. Bear in mind, Laniax with a lot of heavy lifting to do here, 19% restrictor up over that Mustang, so he has really got things far and out and away from him compared to the BMW when it comes to straight line speed, so he's having to attack, and that he does on the exit of De La Rosia. Had to back off for just a moment, didn't want to go up into the rear bumper of Donnie Linton. Can see though the frustration beginning to surface in that 1-1-2. Stuck up behind a car he knows he can pass, but he's waiting for the opportunity to make that definite, knowing that he does not hold the same kind of straight line speed advantage he has held in previous occasions with Ford. Not this time around. The LFM balance of performance have properly neutered the performance off of that Ford. You can see it on our way down the Curva de Seraglio in towards the Variante Ascari, as now we see actually that looks to be trouble up in front. Yes, it is. That's Jasper Prince, and yellow flags are out down at Ascari as another car is caught victim. The 420 can breathe a sigh of relief knowing that it has now secured 2nd place, but now that gap has been sliced down because of the 333 bailing out through that corner. Whatever did happen, we could realistically assume much the same as what we saw for Willie Hoke not too long ago. But coming into the end of the first 10 minutes, it has gone very quickly sour for Jasper Prince as he drops now down to 9th place. Looking here from the attacking point of view on with Rudolph's Laniax as we get into the discussion of the grid after the first third of racing today here. 10 minutes already in of 30 so far, with Owen Camus leading with the fastest lap. It's O'Driscoll 2nd and Johnson in 3rd, Evans 4th and Picconi 5th. On our screens at the moment, the newly found fight of 6th place to be found between Donnie Linton and Rudolph's Laniax. Daniel O'Brien in 8th, Alan O'Brien in 9th, and Sean McNally promoted to the top 10. Right behind him though is Sebastian Scaparo in 11th, Lewis McKenzie behind him in 12th. Into the pit lane, a very damaged 333 there, Jasper Prince. That could very well be the end of his race today after that incident down at Ascari. He's into the pits for repairs. As we see here, a pretty decent wad of cars backed up towards the back of the top 10. They're currently marked by the number 4, the black and green GTR of Sean McNally. Just behind him is Sebastian Scaparo and Lewis McKenzie. Both of them hunting him down for a chance of the top 10 here, of course, adhering to the FIA Formula 1 point scoring system, where only the top 10 of the grid are taking points at the end of this round. Now, to give a brief synopsis as to what that looks like, from 1st down to 10th place, that's 25, 18, 15, 12, 10, 8, 6, 4, 2, and 1. A very universal unit of point scoring now. That measurement has been used in quite a few different series. We have seen in more recent times that to become a larger scale thing, where we see now upwards of the top 20, top 30 positions gaining points. But here, it is sticking very closely to the old school style here in sim racing, where we follow directly off of Formula 1. We do see a big step out of oversteer there for Sebastian Scaparo, and that ultimately nets Lewis McKenzie his opportunity to move up into 11th. But with the Porsche now parked on his rear bumper, We know how formidable they can be under the brakes. What are the chances he holds on to 11th place? Well, let's find out. Down towards the Variante Rettifilo. Scarparo in pursuit. Now emerges from behind. Late onto the brakes there. Meanwhile, right behind them, it's worth pointing out there, Antonio Angeletta had a fantastic run on the brakes, but what a move by Scarparo. Let's just get a look at that, because this is absolutely textbook. This is what the Porsche is all about. This is why people pick that 992. Not any other car in GT3 on this grid right now can get stopping power like that, albeit there was a little bit of a bump just past turn 1. But he was already well within his opportunity to make that move on the run down towards Rettifilo. That is what it's all about for the 992. We do see, though, he's not out of the woods just yet. Still tucked in behind him. And we saw there poking out into the inside line, just sizing up his chances of his next move is Lewis Mackenzie in 12th place. But joining the fray now from behind, we see arriving very quickly there the number 1. That's the black, grey and green Ferrari of Antonio Angeletta. A driver we've often seen with Porsche, so it's curious to see him with Ferrari this time around. Down the curve to Siraj, Leo Mackenzie and Scarparo side by side. This has been an exhilarating fight for 11th. Up and around the outside goes the 44. Absolutely brutal stuff here. Get a look at that on the replays too. We see here for Mackenzie, bear in mind he had Scarparo leap up the inside at Rettifilo, and he gives it right back here at Ascari. Goes the long way around, snips over the nose of the 86, just kept it absolutely pinned in there. That was fantastic stuff from Mackenzie. Now up to 11th place and with decent distance too, so little chance right now of the fight back he'd been fearing after making the move initially. Scarparo now has to deal with Angeletta for company. That's for the fight to be then of 12th place. In terms of what's going on in the top 10, we still find Linton v Laniax, but now joining the fray by looks of it here is Daniel O'Brien. As for Alan O'Brien, we do find him now tucked away behind, by looks of it there, was Prince. But still physically 9th place. So we do see that Prince is back out on track, and fair play to the 333. Firming the damage, getting the car back out on track. It's all about experience at the end of the day, and he'll be able to pick all of this back up into the charge in Season 4 should he enter into that one. Do look forward to seeing how that unfolds in March. So taking a look at things at the moment, as we are not actually too long away from the halfway mark. So how time has flown when we're having fun and having a lot of fun. So we saw was towards the back of the top 10 and into 11th place there. Scarparo v Mackenzie, namely in particular. So Owen Camus leads in the number 67 ahead of O'Driscoll, 2nd, Johnston 3rd, Evans 4th, Picorni 5th. Linton, though, we see trouble here for the number 10, having to cut all the way across Ascari. Stays by looks of it there in 6th, with now, as you can see there, Rudolf Slanieks going up and around the outside of him, but we can see that nerfed engine, that 5.4 with the restrictor on, is having serious trouble navigating past the BMW. That could very well invite in Daniel O'Brien, and that it does. We see here upon the exit of turn 11, he could very well find himself in the slipstream train here. So too does Jasper Prinz at this time. You see the 88 now forced all the way to the farthest edge of the track, now tucks into the line. Right in behind there, the likes of Rudolf Slanieks. We see very late on the brakes, though, for the Latvian as he nearly finds himself onto the emergency exit. Jasper Prinz runs the long distance around there and unlaps himself from the number 112. Bear in mind, this is all building in to that current fight as it stands right now for 7th place between Lanieks and O'Brien. In the time since, though, Sean McNally has now passed up Alan O'Brien, with Lewis Mackenzie sizing up his chances here of a move into the top 10. We've seen an enthusiastic drive so far here after early doors issues for Mackenzie. He has not backed down since. He had a great fight with Scarparo. Now he's eyeing up a fight here with Alan O'Brien. That 10th place could fall into his hands very shortly here with a bit of a dodgy run through the Della Rosia. But then we see in the background, Scarparo spins into the wall, finds himself back on the infield there, reverses across track in the nick of time just to avoid any incident with Anthony Daniel in the 122. It's a pity there for Scarparo because, much like Mackenzie, he has had a fantastic wad of fights today in the opening half of this race. It is a pity, though, as we see that the Porsche, it is a dangerous vehicle indeed. One very, very finely honed, not easy to control in the slightest. You do run that risk. As much as we see its stopping power is unparalleled, it is a whole can of worms entirely to control by contrast. As you see then, solidifying that current scope of 10th place ahead of O'Brien is McKenzie. Looking back up though, in the other O'Brien's point of view, this is Daniel O'Brien hunting down Rudolph's Lane X and still in pursuit then of that 1-1-2. For the first time in, well, I imagine seemingly quite a long time, Ford is actually vulnerable to an advance by McLaren. On paper, you'd never have believed it here in Monza that Ford could be caught up by McLaren, given how dominant they've been without restrictors in play. But under LFM BOP, that car has seen a significant detune. That's what's currently held Laney X from the top 5 throughout the season. The 1-1-2, definitely within his chances. But under BOP, it has just been a very cruel case here for Ford. I mean, there's with every reason they've had to introduce that restrictor. It has set the Ford down to almost being comparable in terms of overall performance. You'd say it's maybe on the level of, you can't really even say AMG, because right now they're outgunning Laney X, that being Milan Piconi up in the top 5 now by half a second away from Evans. So it's kind of put them down on maybe the same level as, I want to say, Lexus in that sense, and it's seemingly rather ironic for Ford this time. Of course, 5.4 litre V8 front engine, rear drive, bit more on the heftier side, more stable. It does mirror a lot of the attributes we saw way further back in the history of ACC in the Lexus RCF. Oh, then taking a look in with some of the fights inside of that top 10. So we saw as well emerging into that new prospect of a fight was earlier on, trying to get a look in here, was Milan Piconi versus Lee Evans. But just taking a look in back once again with Lewis McKenzie. Back on the drive here, not only into the top 10, but you can see a difference in line between himself and McNally. He is actually hunting down a chance right now of 9th place. We'll stay on board here with Lewis McKenzie, and that last lap was faster by, looking at it there, 374 thousandths of a second over McNally. Bear in mind, he's not out of the woods. Alan O'Brien is not too far away at this time. We saw he was really able to get the anchors down in towards turn 1 and 2. What is that going to play for in terms of bringing his gap any closer in? We'll come to see in a moment's time here. Dropping then into the final 10 minutes of racing, coming up not long from now, just under 11 minutes as it stands before the end of today's race, as we follow on board with Lewis McKenzie, who's back into the top 10. He's been on a revenge drive here. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. He's not out of the woods until the checkered flag flies, and as he found issues there up through Della Rogia, that very nearly took away his chances to be within that top 10 once again. We see step out there, bit of oversteer on the run through the curve at Delesmo, turn 6 now into turn 7 for Sean McNally. Picking up a bit of gravel here. Definite signs of fatigue on the number 4, and this is something the 44's got to consider here, as he knows McNally is starting to falter a little bit, so he can't afford to falter now. Minutes feasibly there with the 67 having crossed the line. We're looking at about 5, maybe 6 more laps before the end of this race. We saw though off the exit of Ascari, left a lot to be desired for the 44, now bleeding time away from McNally in the number 4. We'll catch on with these two a little later on. As we see further up in the order then, Piconi v Evans is worth a talk here, as the Mercedes has been constantly gaining ground up over the Nissan. It's not a matchup we often get to discuss, really, Nissan versus Mercedes, because it's very rare that you'll find one or the other on the circuit, let alone both at the same time. But we are blessed here in Season 3 of MSC to find both. We follow on board here with Milan Piconi. And things have definitely taken a much brighter note for Piconi since Season 2. We saw that in the limited time we were there covering Season 2 of MSC, that things were quite a series of ups and downs for Piconi. And his time since moving to Mercedes, things have definitely looked a lot brighter for the number 29 here in Season 3. Now, discussing it, of course, he's been quite consistent throughout these races. 8th place every single time here for the last 3 rounds for Picconi. He stands, as it currently looks right now, upon his best result of the season, 5th place. But he has had a very consistent season. He's part of that joint 6th place as it stands there. 3 drivers in all. Daniel O'Brien, Milan Picconi himself, and Jenson Bolton. Bolton not in this race, but O'Brien is. With Picconi ahead, he will move up into that definitive 6th place, if not even further beyond that. As it stands, though, we're seeing a bit of stalemate settle in here in that fight of 4th place. The Nissan just able to keep pretty solid distance. We do see here, though, this is for Lewis Mackenzie, stranded upon the exit of Ascari in a really uncomfortable spot on track here, trying to almost swerve his way around traffic as he now becomes the latest victim of Ascari's slingshot-style corner structure. And it's set him head over heels, facing the wrong way around the track, and as we saw there, was having to slalom his way around oncoming traffic. That must have been one of the scariest moments of the season here for Mackenzie. Sadly, that has now put a very swift stop to his charge of the top 10. 7.5 minutes left to go. It would take now a miracle to put the 44 back into the top 10, so not a great way for him to end the season off, but he has had some of the best fighting so far. It is worth that much. So you see here, a driver who was earlier on in this race caught out by Ascari. Willie Hope now charging up towards the back end of Antonio Angeletta. There is definitely the chances here of a Ferrari battle for 11th. 1.1 seconds as it stands through Della Rosia. You can see how aggressive he's trying to take the line now, really hammering the car through the corners. That's likely to have been the case since his incident. He's been hammering that car down through every single corner. You can see that he's almost deliberately running out wide, trying to conserve the momentum as it stands here. It's either a case of that or it's the car's not being all too persuasive in the corners. Nonetheless, there is the definite signs here of a very determined drive from the 28, trying to reel back from the issues he suffered earlier on in this race. 6.5 minutes left to go then for the 28. So we see issues now arise for the number 86. So we do have yellow flags out, trying to catch on board with the 86 to see what said issues are looking like. Meanwhile, we do see here for Liam Morrissey is considerable damage. Currently being intercepted by Ben Dexter down towards the Curva de Lesmo. Back into technically green flags at this time. We do see, though, for Morrissey, things looking a lot worse for wear. With that heavy front-end damage on the 777, he now drops down in 19th with Marcelino Fernandez-Pedra and Ben Dexter both passing him up for position. Looking in here with O'Brien v Laniacs. Donnie Linton now having dropped down towards 8th place and staying there as we see very late onto the brakes into Della Rosia there. It is very close to the line for the number 88. Challenging there in through turns 4 and 5, I should say. In towards turn 6 now we go. Into turn 7. You can see, though, that overexertion's not done him many favours in the long run because he still finds himself caught in an awkward stalemate. 0.9 of a second either side, so held in equilibrium as it stands from 7th place. 6th and 8th at equal distance from him. These three split apart, so close yet so far away as we head into the closing 5 minutes of racing. Yellow flags out once again, this time for the number 1 that now retires to the pits and possibly out of this race entirely. That is for Antonio Angeletta. And there we see goes the number 1 out of this race. Back in the green flags, they're now on board with Lee Evans, who is now gaining ground up towards Jay Johnson. If you see there in that last lap, faster by 0.7 of a second. Johnson is bleeding time at a fast rate of knots away from Evans. So while it may very well be the case here that he still stands to lose out the championship, and with O'Driscoll up the road by 6.7 seconds as it stands right now, the chances for him to catch up, then intercept, and then somehow push O'Driscoll down enough positions to find himself in control of the championship. In spite of all of that, he is still going to find his way to fight all the way back up to a podium. Round the Curva Grande, now at the inside down towards Della Rosia. Jay Johnson tucks in behind, but with Milan Picorni pressuring from behind, that Ferrari is caught in a very tight squeeze upon the exit of turn 5. Into turn 6 we go. Johnson still right behind Evans, practically pushing that Nissan down towards turn 7. He backs off there on the second part of the Curva dell'Esmo. Now 7.6 seconds away from O'Driscoll, but Evans still finds a way back onto the podium here. Having started a considerable ways down, you've got to hand it here to Evans. Had things been slightly more fortunate for him in this season, he'd had every reason to fight for the championship. He does find himself in that position now because of the disqualification of Knight Walker. Had it not been for the meddling then of that number 11 in the last 2 rounds, I think we'd be looking at a much closer fight for the championship. Speaking of close fights though, with that recent move to try and go around the outside there by Johnson, we've seen the fight for third properly reignite here onto the closing laps of this race. Nissan against Ferrari, Johnson against Evans. Down onto the brakes we go then into the Variante Rettifilo. Milan Picorni, it's worth noting there, is still very close behind, so do not count the Mercedes out of this. One slip from this fight between the Nissan and the Ferrari is immediately to Picorni's gain, as he hangs out there just at the back of the top 5, surfing on to what is going to be his best result of the season after 3 consecutive 8th place finishes. You do see there for Johnson, he is starting to bleed time away from the Nissan, and that is playing into the ebb and flow of things here, as now he does find himself backing up into Milan Picorni. You see there for the Mercedes though, it was a bit of trouble upon the exit of the Curva dell'Esmo, so that does leave him with a little less momentum to play with down the Curva de Saraglio. Behind him is Jasper Prins, the previous podium driver. Of course, there was that incident earlier on in the race right here at Ascari that caught the 333 out. One of several drivers to have suffered much the same fate at turns 8, 9 and 10. So as you heard there, leader on the final laps will be catching on board at the moment with the number 67, who on the final race of the season is not too far away from claiming his first ever race win here in MSC. That's to our knowledge at least. We'll be happy to take any corrections on the matter. We're seeing here though, before we get to that, the fight of 4th place, Johnson v Picorni, down towards turn 1 and 2. Meanwhile, the 28 in trouble. Yellow flags on the exit of Ascari. I do fear another driver has been caught out in the time since. Meanwhile, Picorni goes up and around the outside in towards the first half of the Variante Rettifilo. Now secures 4th place away from Jay Johnson. You can see for the Ferrari, it is painstaking at the moment. He's flagging for performance. You can hear him almost there lifting off of the throttle, weighing up how does he let past Prins at this point without losing too much time over Picorni. You can see there, was considering it, holds the inside, lets Prins roll on past. But Jay Johnson, it has still been a fantastic race nonetheless, but you can see there effectively... oh, hang on a second, what's going on here? Jay Johnson appears to be in serious trouble. Something is awry for Jay Johnson. He's back into the pits. So what has gone on there? He's fuel saving, so that may very well have been the case. Johnson's out of fuel. What a bizarre end to this race then. Coming down towards the line though, we're on board once again with Owen Camus, who has completely disappeared from that grid for the majority of this race. A silent procession to his first ever race win here at MSC. Down towards the line, Camus wins in Monza. An absolute phantom of this grid then. Entered this series at the last stop to take that race win. Down towards the line though, at the last post of today. 4 rounds in the season 3 in all, with only 1 having been won by the 420. He has done more than enough in this time. John O'Driscoll is your MSC season 3 champion. Lee Evans finishes alongside him on the podium there. But the 420 victorious in Season 3's championship, John O'Driscoll, your MSC GT3 Season 3 champion. Bear in mind, back in Season 2 was an interesting time indeed, taking a look back through that history as well. Of course, we covered part of the second season for the console division on a number of occasions. We got to see some of the dramatic parts of that championship. Sadly, Evans won't find his way to a back-to-back championship this time around, where he took Season 2's championship with Porsche. It comes to be the case here. O'Driscoll has found his time at MSC more than comfortable, taking the championship here in Season 3. So, meanwhile, taking a look at the rest of the grid as we wait to see the last of the results roll in. We're waiting to see here from Scaparo, O'Grady, Dexter, and by the looks of it there, Johnson, who has forced himself back into the pit. So it's pretty clear as the case to us that Johnson ran out of fuel, and we saw that as what was going on with the engine there. He's lifting. We see in the meantime, I think that's just caught out as well Sean O'Grady. So that's 2 Ferraris out of fuel. Unless O'Grady's holding there for... I really can't imagine what. I'm very confused. There's definitely not a case that he's trying to get a dramatic roll down to the line. I'm pretty sure that Ferrari is starved of fuel. Yeah, we can't hear the engine. That 43 is out of fuel. But he's going to roll it down towards the line at the end of the championship here. That Ferrari in the last run down towards the line is just scraping its way to the checkered flag. And there he has it, the world's most expensive soapbox for all of that, what, 100 or so meters. Sean O'Grady to the line for 15th in this race. Taking a look at that final result, though, Owen Camus wins in Monza. John O'Driscoll second, and more than enough to become Season 3's champion. Alongside him on the podium then, last season's champion and his championship rival for Season 3, Lee Evans with Nissan. Milan Picconi in 4th, with Donnie Linton in 5th. Daniel O'Brien 6th. Rudolf Zeleniak in 7th. Sean McNally in 8th. Alan O'Brien in 9th. And Anthony Daniel in 10th. Willie Hoke in 11th, with Lewis McKenzie 12th. Sebastian Scaparo 13th. Ben Dexter 14th. And Sean O'Grady, we saw there limping to the line for 15th. Jay Johnson caught out and forced back into the pits, finishes 16th ahead of Marcelino Fernandez Pedro 17th, Liam Morrissey in 18th, and Jasper Prince in 19th. DNFs then by Angeletta, Barrett, and Litty. What a bizarre end to what has been a fantastic season. Credit where credit's due then. We see here the changing of the guard as the number 420 peels off and celebrates here in fashionable style. Peels away from the 444, last season's champion with Porsche, Lee Evans. Now plays second fiddle to the arrival of John O'Driscoll, your Season 3 champion with Ferrari. And just to quickly give it the credit it deserves, having a look back through the championship, just wanting to get some information on... sadly, we don't have the information on Season 1, but I believe this might very well be Ferrari's first championship in the MSC GT3 series. Of course, last season went to Porsche at the hands of Lee Evans. O'Driscoll here in the 4-part mini-series that is Season 3 wins with Ferrari. It does leave a broad new horizon as to what to expect up into Season 4. Now, to bring that back up, that's what Season 4 is going to look like, folks. Picking up on the 13th of March at Brands Hatch, and that'll carry over 6 weeks to the 17th of April in Barcelona. 6 rounds of that championship: Brands Hatch, Zolder, Silverstone, Hungaroring, Zandvoort, and Barcelona. An all-European championship then. We do look forward to seeing what that's going to be like in the near future. Very big congratulations then to John O'Driscoll. We'll just quickly check a few things here before we cut away, and that'll be all from us not long from now. We'll double check that one. If not, then we'll be wrapping up from here. It has been, albeit a very short series, but one that has given us plenty of options. And plenty of great fights over the course of what has been a very short amount of time. The last 4 weeks have been a fantastic sort of microcosm of races in this championship. And I have just gotten word here that we are going to be able to get a word out of your Season 3 champion, John O'Driscoll. And we're just going to quickly call up and we'll get the interview underway in just a moment's time. Do bear with. Hi there, John. It's Regan from TRTN. Congratulations then on Season 3. How are you feeling?
This is an undescribable feeling. I mean, I've league raced for nearing a decade now, and coming to VSR, coming to ACC as a whole, and joining VSR, and learning the skill of GT3s, and finally being able to put a championship on my resume. It's especially against someone that I've raced against for so long in Grizz or Lee Evans. It's wow.
So in that sense, the student has become the master in your feeling?
I mean, there's definitely a couple more masters out there that I've met in the past. Nightwalker, to name one. Thank God he wasn't here, but yeah, I just can't. I'm so happy to have finally done it on another game than F1, and for such a good commentator like yourself to be doing it, to commentating over it's. I just don't know what to say anymore.
Flattering. Well, having a look into that Season 4 calendar, do you reckon you'll be competing in Season 4 the GT3 Console Championship?
Well, you've got me on this ball for me, then. I've been seriously debating what my future on ACC will be, especially after the VSR fallout with certain admins who I won't put on blast live. It's really left a sour taste in my mouth for league racing as a whole, and I'm going to need some time to think about my future here, especially in NLRL as well. I mean, I need some time to think about my future, but I'm going to go and drink some vodka to celebrate this.
Well, with every reason to celebrate. It's been a fantastic season for you so far. Even though it's only been the one race win, it has still been a brilliant season to remember. If this is the last time we see you in sim racing, it has certainly been on one of the highest notes, I imagine, in your career on GT.
Oh, definitely. It couldn't have ended any better if this is the end.
Well, we'll see what decision you make, and we'll perhaps see you again soon, or in perhaps another discipline entirely. Otherwise, it's been fantastic seeing you race, and very well done today. Enjoy the rest.
Thank you everyone watching as well. Thank you.
Take care. Well, that was John O'Driscoll, your Season 3 champion then for MSC's GT3 Championship. And that brings about the close of Season 3. And what a brilliant little series it has been then. Short but sweet, I think, the moral of the story. And what has been a fantastic four-parter. Our next stop then here with the folks at MSC might even come up sooner than what you see on the calendar so far. Brands Hatch is set to be the first round of Season 4. That'll pick up on March 13th. But, and this is a significant part of the conversation, we may be seeing you a bit sooner than that, as we have some projects perhaps lined up with the folks at MSC over on, Le Mans Ultimate. We'll have more to talk about in the next couple of weeks, but until then, that's all from us here on TRTN. What a privilege it has been to work with these folks once again, and now for a full championship as opposed to the part-time we had back in Season 2. Until then, it's been all from us here on TRTN. All the best. Take care. Good night.